Visiting a national park is a wonderful way to spend a weekend. Being a family-friendly pastime that anyone can enjoy, millions of people visit national parks around the country every year. Most people leave the park and recommend the trip to their friends, but some never get the chance. While national parks are inviting people of all ages to enjoy a haven of nature, they can also be a deadly labyrinth. These parks can easily cover millions of miles of untamed woods, becoming a seemingly endless maze in which you may never find your way out. This is a 1 in a billion chance, of course, but that still leaves some who will fall victim. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 unlucky people who walked into the park and seemed to vanish into thin air, never to be found again. The disappearance of Maurice Gordon Doc Dametz. Maurice Gordon Doc Dametz was an 84-year-old Christian reverend of whom had a relatively successful writing career during his time working as a Christian leader of his small community, with a number of successful publications under his belt, such as his works titled Focal Points of Christian History, Trouble Transformed, Burden Bearing, Mystery of Godliness, and Dead at the Top. Unfortunately, Doc Dametz was suffering from a severe blood disorder that made it difficult for him to be alone and had severe arthritis complications that prevented him from being able to move without assistance. Despite these physical limitations, Doc Dametz enjoyed spending his free time venturing out into the wilderness to locate ideal locations for mining precious gems and minerals. Dametz had been a fan of leading his own private expeditions in the field of geology and would often invite a close friend of his to accompany him when making trips out into the national parks or empty stretches of wilderness to assist him during the trip and help him move throughout different pieces of rugged terrain. Doc's fascination for the field of geology would eventually lead him to joining the American Federation of Mineral Societies and Flatiron Gem and Mineral Club, becoming an experienced veteran of private expeditions and mining efforts. It is for all these reasons that it came as a shock to the wife of Doc Dametz when Doc disappeared suddenly and unexpectedly when venturing out into the Pike National Forest located in the Front Range of Colorado, when taking a trip with his close friend McSherry to find a digging spot for minerals. According to McSherry, the two had found a small sandy pit close to the Rampart Range Road, where McSherry said he had left Dametz to venture out an extra 50 yards to find his own sandy pit to dig from. After about 2 hours of mining, McSherry returned to Doc Dametz and told him they would be driving home soon because it would be getting dark. Doc had said that he would be gathering his tools while McSherry returned to his pit to pack up his things. After McSherry finished packing his things, he returned to Doc Dametz's pit only to find that he had completely disappeared without a trace. When investigations were made, detectives remarked that the disappearance of Doc Dametz seemed perplexing as there was no evidence of a struggle or any footsteps, markings or tracks left behind in any direction. Additionally, all of Doc Dametz's tools went missing with him, with nothing left in the pit to be used as evidence. On the 18th of July 1981, the wife of Maurice Gordon Doc Dametz wrote a letter to her governor, Governor Richard Lamb, asking for any assistance in helping her find her husband. The letter detailed that she believed some form of conspiracy had been committed against her husband, with thoughts that he had met some form of foul play or had been carried away, but that all efforts for an investigation were being impeded by unseen forces. Despite this letter, no further action was taken, with Doc Dametz declared dead in 1990. The disappearance of Drake Kramer. Drake Kramer was 21 years old and looking forward to studying geology at college. Described as a loving and caring young man, it came as a shock when one day in 2015, he traveled alone to the Grand Canyon and was never seen again. Despite extensive searches involving helicopters and teams of searcher dogs trailing along dozens of miles of wooded areas and along the canyon rim, no evidence about Kramer's whereabouts was unearthed. Kramer's friends and family could not understand his actions. Excited about his upcoming studies, it made no sense that Kramer would suddenly pick up and leave everything without informing anyone. Just 2 days before Kramer was reported missing, he accompanied his father to a showing of American Sniper and was described as having been in good spirits throughout the evening. As a lover of nature, The Grand Canyon was one of Kramer's favorite places to be. In a Facebook post following a visit to the site with his aunt, he wrote of wishing he could stay there. But Kramer had never expressed interest before of going to the Grand Canyon alone. What's more, his father doubted whether Kramer had even taken the appropriate hiking gear with him. Kramer would have been more than aware of the dangerous winter conditions along the South Rim, which could be extremely snowy, with icy roads and trails and possible road closures. It seems absurd he would not have prepared himself properly for the excursion. This has led some to believe Kramer might have been suicidal. Before his disappearance, Kramer sent out a text message telling his loved ones that he had to give his body to Mother Earth. This might be an innocent reference to his love of the outdoors, but it could also be read in a darker light and indicate Kramer's depressed mental state at the time. Whichever way you read Kramer's message, the facts remain the same. Over 5 years later, there is still no sign of him, leaving his loved ones still searching for answers. William Bates. Back in 1902 in New York, a well-known doctor by the name of William Bates sends a messenger to deliver a note to his wife. "My dear wife," it says, "I am called out of town to some major operations. I go with Dr. Forsch, an old student, to do a mastoid, some cataracts, and other operations. He promises me a bonanza. Too bad to miss the horse show, but I am glad to get so much money for us all. I am in such a flurry. Do not worry, I will write details later. Yours lovingly, Willie." It was not out of the ordinary for the doctor to be called away on spontaneous moments like this, but his wife, Ada Seaman Bates, found something in the note puzzling. Dr. Bates was already particularly successful as one of the foremost optometrists in the city. They were already very well off, and the doctor was also not one to talk about money like this. However, Ada set this to the back of her mind and thought nothing more of it. That is, until several days had passed, and the good doctor had still not returned home. His disappearance prompted a search, not only by the local police precinct in New York City, but a wider net cast internationally by the Freemasons, the elusive organization that William Bates himself was a member of. Months passed and no news came Ada's way, up until a letter arrived at her door. News from the chapter of Freemasons based across the Atlantic 3,500 miles away in London. A character resembling Dr. Bates had been located in a London hospital, but he was not living his day-to-day as a senior optometrist. He was merely a medical assistant. The mystery only deepened when it was revealed he first came to the hospital not as a doctor, but as a patient. When he first arrived, he was so emaciated he could barely stand, looking haggard and thin, his eyes deeply sunken. This for a man whose sizable bank account should have ensured a life of luxury wherever he travelled to. Ada made the journey to England at once, but this was not to be a happy reunion. Ada Bates's joy upon seeing her husband again was short-lived. She was met with a blank stare from her long-lost husband. "I don't know why you bother, madame," he said. "We are strangers." But she was not one to let their long-standing marriage disappear like her husband had. He was persuaded by her, albeit begrudgingly, to move in with her to the Savoy Hotel where they might rekindle their relationship anew. Her efforts wouldn't pay off, as a day later, William Bates snuck out of their room, never to be seen by her again. Ada never stopped searching, sending private investigators throughout Europe and the eastern seaboard, but all in vain. She died clutching a photo of him, heavy-hearted and in anguish. But Dr. Bates's story would not end there. 8 years later, an acquaintance visiting Grand Forks, a small town of 12,000, stumbled upon a man who cast a great similarity to William. Again, there followed a clear lack of memories of his previous life. It was as if he had a chunk of his mind removed, like a slice of watermelon chopped away and eaten by an invisible monster, wrote the associate. Was this tale an episode of amnesia, or perhaps the aimless wandering a man looking to find something more than money in his life, but only ended up losing himself? Whatever the case, William Bates passed away in 1931, leaving this disappearing act a mystery forever.